Is the Valentine's Day special. Which I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I made it up 60 seconds ago. Today, all we had was considering how the brain is analogous to distributed software architecture. So that's just like looking up a metaphor. So we probably could keep going on videos, perhaps, just watch stuff. The other thing I wanted to do was perhaps continue with what I was working on earlier today, which is getting the automatic behaviors section up and running. I think we have our setup now. I gutted the area that was in the document for that, so it's going to be added here. I want to keep it in this separate document so that we can download it easily and then throw it into Gemini for more discussion. Yeah, I kind of want to like ask it to start writing stuff. And when I say that, I mean to start improving upon the outline we have. Like perhaps the prompt would literally be like, can you literally improve upon this outline, or can you fill out this outline, and can you fill out and format this outline in a structured way that makes sense, and whatever that would be. But for now, let's have that fun that I was talking about. So I want to explore all the ways that we could find metaphors between the brain and distributed systems and software architecture. I guess I really didn't need to go that far here. Should I give anything more there? No, let's just run with that. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I guess the tricky part is like this really doesn't work too well except for like APIs. Like I guess you could think about the APIs of each individual brain region or network. The problem is they're always like you have to draw a black box somewhere, and it's always kind of hard to figure out where to draw that black box. Functional isomorphism, systems doing similar things, and mechanistic identity. While the brain as a computer, I should mention that. I don't want to simply entertain the idea of the brain as a computer, because I know that that is faulty in many different ways. However, I'm looking more so at concrete, specific mechanisms within the brain that function similar to how different parts of a distributed architecture would. So I'm thinking about APIs of regions or networks. I'm thinking about event buses. I'm thinking about I don't know. We can't go data storage. So there's really not going to be many, I don't think. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So there's certainly nothing like consciousness that we would even care to talk about. This idea of a relay is kind of weird in functional and object-oriented programming, except for literally just sending events, event streams. But perhaps that's where we can get into some of these specific examples. On the functional equivalence, how both systems solve problems of latency, bandwidth, synchronization, and resource management. All right, the thalamus, so here we go. The thalamus has an active event mesh, is often lazily called a switchboard, but in distributed system terms, it functions more like a smart event mesh or an API gateway with prioritized routing. So the thalamus sits between sensory input and the cortex, right? It doesn't just pass signals, it gates them based on state. The thalamic reticular nucleus acts as a gain control mechanism, physically inhibiting signals that are deemed irrelevant by top-down predictions. Okay. So then the software metaphor, this would be like an API gateway or an ingress controller. It is the single entry point for external data trying to reach the internal microservices. Right, but this would be like, there's no internal microservice. Each different local network is going to deal with the thalamus in a similar way. All right, back pressure and rate limiting. If the cortex is overwhelmed or focused on a high priority task, the thalamus actively throttles low priority traffic. For example, the feeling of your shirt on your skin. To prevent system overload, it drops packets before they consume expensive cortical compute resources. Dropping packets is a nice metaphor here. So predictive coding as delta sync and speculative execution. The leading theory of cortical function, predictive coding, championed by Carl Friston, posits that the brain is constantly generating a model of what it expects to sense. Higher cognitive layers send predictions down to lower sensory layers. The lower layers compare the actual sensory input against the prediction. If they match, the signal stops. Only the prediction error is propagated back up. Right, the software metaphor, differential synchronization. The brain does not transmit the full state every millisecond. That would require massive bandwidth. Instead of it transmits the diff. Okay, we got a diff here. A delta sync, I see. If nothing's changed, zero data is transmitted up the stack. So speculative execution. So the brain renders perception based on the cached model before the sensory data is fully processed to reduce perceived latency. This is why you might see a snake in the grass that turns out to be a hose. Okay. It's returning a cached high probability object to the user to the consciousness here, while the backend verified the data. All right, neural oscillations as distributed clock synchronization. Okay. Keeping distinct nodes synchronized is difficult. For example, NTP, vector clocks. The brain faces a similar binding problem. How do you ensure that the color red, the shape round, and the motion rolling, processed in different areas, are bound to the same object ball? Yo, Energy Domter, would you be willing to react to a video related to inactivism and cubism? I don't think so. I think we might need to pass over cubism. Inactivism. Well, I guess you're saying the connection of both of those. So yeah, I think we need to move on from that topic. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to help us too much. Gamma waves, right? We've got the man, were the gamma waves the slow ones or the fast ones? I think they were the fast ones. High frequency, right? And then theta waves are the slow ones. All right, gamma waves create a temporal window of synchronization. Neurons involved in representing the same object fire in a phase-locked manner. Right, the software metaphor, clock synchronization, two-phase commit. It provides a commit window. If a neuron fires outside the phase window, its data is considered part of a different transaction or dropped. And then we've got different frequencies allow for multiple signals to ride the same bus without collision. Okay. Would you at least be willing to ask for a summary of the video and give your perspective on... Well, I think we've already gone over the cubism stuff. I just don't want to... I don't think we need to go on that topic. I asked because I believe it's possible you'll enjoy some of the ideas discussed. I might enjoy those. I just... You know, in the mindset that... I don't know, that I'm currently in. I think we need to say goodbye to a lot of the quantum stuff and you know, even though I'm dealing with this some consciousness stuff here, I think we got to say goodbye to this stuff as well. I was just kind of curious about this idea of metaphors between, or analogies, I should say, between the brain and software architecture. So that's why we're talking about this stuff. Cortical columns as containerized microservices. Yes, now we're getting there. The neocortex is uniform in structure, made up of repetitive units called cortical columns. A column is a vertical slice of cortex containing all 6 layers. It acts as a canonical circuit, a standardized module of processing. Whether it's processing audio or visual data, the internal wiring of the column is remarkably similar. The software metaphor, containerization, right? We've got the cortical columns is the container image. It is a standardized runtime environment. The application depends on the data injected into its input port layer 4, but the architecture of the unit is immutable. Wow. And then we got replica sets. The brain scales intelligence by simply adding more of these identical columns, much like spinning up more pods in a Kubernetes cluster to handle increased load. Insane. Pretty please, I believe an activism integrates with your doc. I mean, an activism I think does, right? But not connecting it to cubism. An activism is just proposing that cognition arises from the active embodied. Yeah, like we care about embodied cognition, we just don't care about quantum physics in relation to it. So, yeah, I don't think yeah, this is a cubism video. All right, the glymphatic system has stopped the world garbage collection. Biological brains accumulate metabolic waste that effectively act as memory leaks or fragmented memory, like beta amyloid proteins. Okay. It flushes this waste, but it is primarily active during deep sleep. So is this the adenosine? Is adenosine a part of the glymphatic system? Is that how that? Okay, yes. Research indicates that adenosine is a key modulator and signaling molecule within the glymphatic system. While not a structural component like aquaporin 4 water channels, adenosine acts as a neurochemical messenger that enhances the flow of cerebrospinal fluid through the brain, particularly under specific conditions such as 40 hertz light stimulation. Right. This increased adenosine enhances glymphatic flow. And it also acts as a signaling molecule that may stimulate the glymphatic system to work harder to clean waste. Okay. However, I do believe that the overlap between physics and cognitive science is something you might find relevant. Kinda. It's just like where does it? How does it affect us every single day? Like even if cubism was true, how would that affect how we ought to go about our day? Like I don't see a single thing we gain from it other than just like an interesting thing. There's no tool that we get. All right, garbage collector, right. Neuromodulation as the control plane. Neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine don't usually carry specific data. Rather, they alter how data is processed, right? These chemicals flood areas, wide areas of the brain, diffusely, changing the firing threshold and plasticity rates of millions of neurons simultaneously. Neuromodulators are global configuration updates pushed by the control plane. Okay, I'm not sure if I understand this control plane idea. And feature flags. Might be a flag for focus mode equals true. Okay, feature flags. What is control plane? They change runtime behavior. All right, control plane software. Is the brain of network cloud or infrastructure systems responsible for managing, configuring, and orchestrating the data plane. Traffic forwarding. Okay. It defines topology, routing, and policy in SDN or multi-cloud environments to ensure high availability, security, and automated resource management. All right, I think that was. I think that's all we want to do with that topic. It was nice, but it wasn't as interesting as I thought it might have been. So, yeah. That was tomorrow, right? Short form marketing. How to go about introducing marketing shorts. Okay. We could say that for tomorrow. Yeah, so then from there we can just continue what we were kind of doing yesterday with just random videos that we flagged. Stuff that we deem necessary. Maybe we should do some beneficial.
On the 23rd of October.
We gotta get some grind set YouTubers in here. See what to do.
I discovered something that's probably changed my life. It resulted in me posting this video that went on to get over 4.5 million views. But what most people don't see about this video is if we come into the analytics, look at the view graph here. At the beginning of this video's lifespan, you can see that it got basically no views. It was dead in the water. But then something happened here and we went from 11,000 views to over 1 million views in just a couple of weeks. And today I want to talk about what caused this inflection point here. Because, and this is going to sound crazy, but I believe this inflection point could not have happened without the 2-minute hack I'm going to show you. And granted, this is an extreme case, but I've since used this hack on multiple other videos that went on to get hundreds of thousands of views, both on large.
All right, can we guess what this 2-minute hack would be? In 2 minutes. Is this a 2-minute hack? Is it takes 2 minutes to do this thing? Or is there something that we do about the first 2 minutes of the video? It's got to be something you could change, right? It's like something where we probably go into the creator. How do I go into the creator? Customize channel. Yes. Dashboard. And I might be able to do something in here with content. Here's what's coming up, by the way. What was that? Oh, this is... Was this today? This was today. Discussing my guru score. We've got qualia quietism coming up on Tuesday. We got conceptual experience coming up on Thursday. We got my criteria for modern philosophy coming up on Saturday next week. I have a recommendation related to cognitive science and biology. Let it rip. Let it rip. Oh, okay.
Channels, but also really small channels that have just started. So let me show you how it works. And to do that, we need to go back to the 28th of August, 2022. Now, this is around a time that I was growing the YouTube channel you're watching right now. And I kept getting these comments from people being like, you suck. Why don't your own videos get views? How come your channel isn't growing? And to be fair, these are reasonable comments. All they see is this small YouTube education channel that doesn't seem to be getting millions of views. And so they're calling that out. And even though I have a lot of confidence in what I talk about because I've used it on other channels, it kind of hurt my ego a bit, not gonna lie. But eventually got to the point where there were so many of these comments that it was like really frustrating. And I set out to create a viral video on this channel to prove all the haters wrong. So I researched the video idea, researched trends, blah, 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 blah. I have a whole video of what I did that I'll link at the end of this one if you want to watch. But long story short, I landed on creating a video about how MrBeast was a YouTube genius, which seems very cliche now, but back when this video was created, there were far less people talking about MrBeast. Now, the hack I'm going to show you has nothing to do with the fact that I was creating a MrBeast video or the fact that I'm an education channel or whatever. This can work on any channel with any video, and I'll show you why in a sec. But anyway, I created this video, I posted it, and like you can see from this graph, just flat, just nothing. And I started questioning myself. I'm like, have I like lost touch? Like what's going on? And so I jumped into this video's analytics to diagnose what the problem was. And when I did that, and I came down to my audience retention graph here, and that's when I noticed a big problem. See, your audience retention graph represents how long people are watching your video for. So what you ideally want to see is flat line, people not leaving the video, or at least as flat as you can possibly get it. Because that means a high percentage of people are actually watching the video. To oversimplify things makes the algorithm love that video and promote it to more people. But what I saw in this MrBeast video were two things. One, I saw some drop-offs, kind of like the ones you can see in this example here, at random points within the video. And also I saw a much steeper decline during the intro than I would have liked. And that means two things. One, my intro wasn't really engaging people. And two, there were certain clips or moments within this video that were triggering people and making them click off the video.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
And I remember being super bummed out because I'm like, man, we've put all this effort into this video and these dud moments are killing my entire video. But then I remembered something. See, not long before that, YouTube had released the YouTube editor. If we come to the YouTube editor, it kind of looks like this. There's a feature in here called trim and cut. And if you click on this, there are a couple of things you can do. One, you can trim down your video by dragging this handle to cut off something from the intro or cut off something from the outro. Or you can come and click on new cut, which will add like a cut within the video like this. And you can drag these handles to cut out a certain portion within the video. So I came in here and trimmed off the intro. And then also the clips within the video that people didn't seem to resonate with, I cut them out as well. Then I hit save on my video, and all this probably took me 2-3 minutes to do. But what happened was amazing. My retention got better, and eventually YouTube found the right audience for my video. And because of my higher retention, it had enough confidence in my video to push it out to literally over 1 million people in the course of a few weeks. And I really believe that if it wasn't for me cutting out those friction points, this would never have happened, and those hater comments would still haunt my dreams to this day. And now I've done this to multiple videos across my channel. I would say about 30% of my most successful videos, I've done this exact process to, and it's improved their retention and got them hundreds of thousands, some even millions of views that wouldn't have happened without this 2-minute hack. So if you have a decent video, but when you check your retention, you see a couple of points that are really hurting your retention.
Oh, it's tricky because 143 views. I guess that's a good enough sample size. I don't think that like 50 is enough. But I could be wrong. All right, let's see. What's going on with our Nietzschean penguin? Is this analytics? Do we do analytics here? We want to see engagement? No. We want to see reach? No. Audience? Watch times? No. We're looking for... What was the
Go into the editor, cut them out, and hey, it's improved video, read the video on screen to see exactly how I made this video that I'm showing you right now, any video. And I'll show you why in a sec. But anyway, I created this video to diagnose what the problem was. And like,
I could just scroll down? Oh my gosh. Genius. All right. We're losing a lot within the first 30 seconds, but chances are this is because I'm you know, viewers still watching at around 30.
With 5,000 kilometers ahead of him, he's heading towards certain death.
Oh, we want videos. We want videos of penguins. No, we need more penguins. It needs to be more fun. This is good stuff. Oh my God, penguins are so cool. Yeah, this is classic.
It could be that the
Everyone
name
just
of the video
like they
is
don't know
not
what they're doing.
exactly,
This is where I show my true colors. It's all been about penguins the entire time.
Oh,
This
these
guy's
penguin haters
popping
over here.
off. Yo, what? This guy could be our sponsor, not our sponsor, our mascot. The fact that kiwis waddle like this and they don't have wings as far as I can tell just
That
from
being
looking
said,
at them.
There's like there's some Bayesian logic here where you can't just look at each of these drops as carrying the same weight in some sense. Like once you get past here, now you're looking at people, like there's always a conditional. Is that how people talk in Bayes? There's always the is that yeah, Bayes has conditionals, right? It's like I forget. Bayes conditional. Right. Right, the probability of hypothesis A being true given the evidence B. So at every point, there's like, if the person has gotten this far, this is how many people drop. So a big drop here. This is a bummer because this is like the rate here doesn't change at all across this. So like I can't take the same. Like this drop right here, I can't take as similar to this drop. So I think later drops are less important. Maybe we would want to just look at the start drops. But this video I think is fine. I'm not going to touch that one. I'm going to be much more cognizant maybe of like this type of video. But even this one, it's so short. And I'm always going to... Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's sick. Okay, this one's fine. What does this say? Oh, man. Viewers still watching at around 30. Okay, what is this guy telling us? Is this just a midway point? 64% of viewers are still watching at around the 30-second mark, which is typical. I see. And yeah, what about when we get like a video like this, a 54 video? Are we getting, yeah, we're getting huge drop-offs here. This channel's goal is to push people out of the idea of like the analytic mindset where things just there's like a rule set that is objective and yeah, I don't know if we can do much about this. Like scripted videos, I think we have a little bit more of a lever here, but for these edited videos, I think we just kind of have to run with them and hope that we don't have any like huge drop-offs of physics, but implicit standards that constitute our shared world of meaning. The semantic relations of incompatibility and consequence we discussed earlier can now be understood. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh my gosh, I'm getting myself. These videos still have that like click that makes me think that someone wrote in chat. Okay, let us get off of this. Let's talk about this. Terrence Deacon, a biological anthropologist and neuroscientist, is best known for the synthesizing evolutionary biology, semiotics, and thermodynamics to explain how meaning and purpose arise from physical matter. His work primarily spans two major texts. Okay, his central project is to naturalize concepts that science often struggles with, reference, value, and consciousness, without reducing them to mere computation or mystical dualism. All right, language and the symbolic threshold. He challenges the dominant linguistic theories of the 20th century. Okay, specifically Chomsky's universal grammar and Pinker's language instinct. He relies heavily on the semiotics of C.S. Peirce, arguing that reference happens in a hierarchy. Most animals communicate using the first two levels. Only humans effectively master the third. Oh, geez. We've got icon. We've got reference by physical correlation. We got reference by social. I always hate when this happens. This is Heidegger does something similar when he talks about signs, and I don't know if I really care about conceptualizing how we refer to things using some intuitive view like this, but we've got an icon, so a portrait resembles a person. We've got an index, reference by physical correlation, so something implying something else. And then we got symbol, reference by social convention and systemic relationship to other symbols. The word whale does not look like a whale, nor is it physically linked to one. Yeah, so there's so much overlap with these concepts that I just don't want to touch that. The symbolic threshold. Oh, geez. Okay, so what counts as symbolic? Argues that animals do not struggle with speech because of vocal limitations, but because of a cognitive barrier, the symbolic threshold. Moving from indexical associations to symbolic relationships requires a massive unlearning of direct associations. Humans are unique because our brain evolved to suppress direct indexical associations to grasp abstract symbolic relationships. Okay, I don't know if we can run with these. Language is an organism, right. Languages evolve. Right, the prefrontal cortex expanded to handle the heavy working memory demands of processing symbols. Okay. Biology and incomplete nature. Deacon attempts to explain how life and mind emerge from non-living matter without violating the laws of physics. Okay. Current science ignores the causal power of what is not there. A shovel is defined by the whole void that makes it useful. A purpose is defined by a goal that has not yet happened. What is going on here? Constitutive absence. Okay, yeah, this is fine, but we can't conflate this with like actual physics. Matter is driven by pushes, but life and mind are driven by pulls. Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta leave that whole deal. I'm just generally yo, Daniel N, what's good? Stantilosaurus, the Mantilosaurus. Is there a Mantilosaurus out there? Is that a thing? I guess in history. I'm always nervous though connecting ways of conceptualizing the mind or life with these types of it's really like connecting physics and metaphysics. I'm not a fan of, and that's what I think is going on here. Views consciousness not as a computation but as a specific physical process related to work and energy. Sure. Is the physical work of the system restructuring its own constraints to deal with new information? That's fine, but that's not like, I wouldn't say that it's like that functional interpretation is what's causing the consciousness. I would say it's the actual nuts and bolts under this thing that we're calling work. So I am unfortunately unimpressed. It's a kind of raptor, like bigger though. Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, it's not a bird, so we can't take it into our identity as this for this channel. But these are pretty cool looking. These are pretty cool looking. They're pretty big. What are they eating these days? Okay. Discovery, like a little over 100 years ago. Iguanodont compared to Iguanodon Bernissartensis. It was smaller. Its forelimbs were proportionally shorter. Proposes that it was primarily bipedal, only going on all fours when standing still or moving slowly. Interesting. Man, these things are wild. Going bipedal like this. Crazy stuff. Yo, Birdbanes, what's good? Good morning. I'm sure a number of paleontologists would crucify me for saying raptor-like. Alright, can we react to this relatively short video? Can we? Let's see. Do we have it in us?
Terry, you're...
I don't think I want to touch Deacon here. I think I don't think he passes the first filter of Google Gemini. Yeah, unfortunately. Alright, what else do I have in my backlog here? The world is becoming more parasocial. Here's why. By unsolicited advice.
With the
Alright, let's get a summary for this one because it's kind of long. This video explains the complex nature of parasocial relationships, defining them as asymmetrical emotional attachments where one person knows a lot about another who doesn't know them in return. These relationships, common with celebrities and public figures, can also extend to fictional or historical characters. Here's a breakdown of key points. The video highlights 3 key asymmetries: attentional, communicational, and epistemic. It also emphasizes that these relationships are often mediated through imagination, creating a sort of imaginative construction of the person. The lines between social and parasocial relationships have become blurred with the rise of social media, leading to a spectrum rather than a sharp division. The good and bad of parasocialities. Contrary to popular belief, parasocial relationships are not inherently negative or a sign of psychological deficit. They can be a normal part of the human experience, offering benefits like alleviating loneliness, fostering connection, and providing intellectual inspiration or role models. I wonder, yeah, I guess you could point out that like we kind of have these weird like parasocial relationships with fictional characters, with people from history, with the prominent people in our communities who we might see a lot but we don't ever talk to. And a lot of those are just, yeah, influential. Like they can just be good role models or bad role models. They can just be information. But some of them can make you feel like you are heard, or at least you have an identity that's there. Do you disagree with his ideas related to biology? I disagree with the way that he's conceptualizing things. That's really it. I think all the stuff that he talks about in terms of biology is probably right, like in a scientific sense. It's probably like accurate or correct, but I don't like where he's running with that.
I keep hearing the term parasocial these days, right? Yeah, we are too online. We are chronically online. All right, the parasocial world and its future. The video expresses concerns that parasocial relationships are increasingly becoming a substitute for genuine social connections due to their easy accessibility and lower risk of rejection in the digital age. Don't be worried about this. People are going to have AI relationships very soon. And I don't mean that as a joke. I think people are going to start actually just like becoming good friends with AI. And that is perhaps more terrifying. But it's at least not going to make the people involved feel depressed about or lonely, right? Like it's going to fix one problem, but it's going to make another problem. I think it will genuinely help people with their, like, dealing with their lack of human-to-human social interaction. How is it para? That's a good question. What is the para prefix? What is good, Dharma Dom? I was just reading a Substack like that. Nice. Beside, alongside, beyond, or abnormal. I'm guessing it's going with the abnormal here. Indicates something that is adjacent to, subsidiary to, or closely resembling something else. Okay, that makes sense. So it's resembling a relationship, I guess. But like, I think that's, you know, it is a relationship. The speaker speculates that technology, especially social media, incentivizes more parasocial interactions and could lead to a future where parasociality outweighs sociality. Yeah, I guess you could describe AI relationships as parasocial in the same vein, but I don't think that's the same type of parasocial he's getting at. The video introduces the concept of AI chatbots as an extreme form of parasocial relationship, questioning whether perfect imitations of human connection should be valued equally. Right? It's tough because, as I just said, like, it's going to be registered somewhat equally, except for, I guess, you miss out on physical touch and a lot of other aspects of having like a human-to-human relationship. But the bigger problem is the effect on society at large, like a more zoomed out effect, which could be terrible. The girl who was in a relationship with Claude, yep. By Boris Krieger, by chance. No, we haven't seen Boris since. Boris has probably written 100 books since we've talked about him. I wonder if Boris Krieger is even coming up with the ideas for the books that he's writing. Because if he's not, then that is even more fraudulent. It highlights the dangers of these relationships, including the potential for parasocial abuse through AI impersonation and the inability to genuinely care for a non-conscious entity. Right? Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, once we start getting into, man, imagine all your friends are AI. You're going to be like, why would I care about these conscious things when I get all my satisfaction out of the AI? So this is why perhaps it's good for us to commit to some sort of morality that's based in empathy towards actual conscious beings. That's not to say that we should do anything with the AI. It's just that perhaps we need to keep a reminder that we care about humans. Parasocial, like parapsychology. Oh, what is parapsychology? Abnormal psychology or other psychology? Part of the reason I recommend things related to theoretical physics is because, in my view, theoretical physics is similar to philosophy in some respects, and to my understanding, you're interested in philosophy. Right, but at this point, I think you might need to have a more precise justification for why you think it would be necessary. Like, we talk about a bunch of stuff, obviously, and we we just spent a lot of time on part 1 content, and I usually talk through the stuff that I talk about in part 1, and like I would want to see why you think that any of these topics are specifically important for part 1, given what I've already said. So, like, perhaps what might my
formulation of these topics be missing that you think that Deacon's conceptualization has? And that would be much more helpful for me. Paranormal, true. Yeah, what is paranormal? Is that an oxymoron? Can I go back to that? Oh, I think I already... No, that was a Google thing. If para has a connotation for abnormal, then isn't paranormal an oxymoron? Paradox versus norm docs. Norm docs. Which would be just a... What would be a norm docs? It would just be like a valid assertion. Investigate remote viewing. Oh my gosh. We're doing a remote viewing day. Words are not allowed to be oxymorons, especially the word oxymoron. Are you saying that like they cannot possibly be an oxymoron? It is not an oxymoron, but rather a locational or relational term. Your premise relies on a specific, somewhat narrower definition of the Greek prefix para. While para can imply deviation or irregularity, its primary etymological meaning is beside, alongside, beyond, or contrary to. So it would be something like contrary to normal. Right, so beyond, outside of the normal. So it is still necessary. Okay. It's fine. That's good with me. The video concludes by stressing the irreplaceable value of reciprocal social relationships and the danger of using parasocial means to address a fundamental lack of genuine human connection. Right, but you get that with the AI. That's the problem. The only thing we're going to be missing is social touch once AI can live generate a face and or a body and have that face react to what you're saying. You get almost everything, which is scary. All right, what else do we have? Oh my gosh. All right, we've got another unsolicited advice video.
What is the meaning of life? It's a question that many of us...
Nice start. I think I'm going to do another summary. Para Richson. Johann Helmet. Correct me if I'm mistaken, however, to my understanding, part of one of your document is related to metaphysics and epistemology, which I believe is related to cubism. Right, these are like very indirect relations, though. I think at this point I need something a little more concrete as to why it's related, given what I talk about, or given the specific things I talk about, not just like given the topics. It needs to be like specifically, you mentioned this and this, but you miss this slight sliver that actually might be beneficial to the reader. It can't just be like, this is related and I think it's important. Like so the document, I don't think part 1 of the document needs to talk about quantum physics much at all. We mentioned quantum physics, I think, once at the very beginning, like in the intro, to just say that, like, hey, quantum physics is still deterministic, or it can be still deterministic depending on which theory you like, but we now like multiple theories that are deterministic. Beyond social, contrary might be a bit sharp. Okay. Para Stan, Para Richson. You have to use DeepSeek for remote viewing questions. The Chinese AI is more mystical.
That would be spooky. They have made great strides in hugging tech. Oh no. Yeah, once we get the actual robots involved, then we're getting a little too scary. Then there's gonna be no difference, and things just get too weird. Like I think it's now outside of like what we can understand or what we could predict. Did he say wart? Did someone say wart? How Minecraft was made? Oh, did I? I don't know if that's still here, but oh, there it is. How Minecraft was made. I was kind of curious about that one. But it's been sitting in my watch later for like, I don't know, over 6 months now. Or whenever I saw it. Paracraft is beyond Minecraft. The Chinese AI is more mystical. Australian traveler visits China for the first time. Okay, what do we have in this video? It challenges the traditional approach to the question, what is the meaning of life? This is kind of a topic that we have for part 3, but we're going to be pretty clear that it's something for each person to find themselves, that there is no like objective shared meaning of life. The speaker Joe Foley argues that discussions about life's meaning are often unproductive because of a lack of agreement on what meaning entails. Right, so you have to have a discussion that is abstract enough that anyone can follow along and it not be, I don't know, excluding or disqualifying given what people believe. So polyvalence of terms. The term meaning in life can have multiple acceptable interpretations depending on the context. For example, meaning can refer to a personal feeling or fulfillment, a grand cosmic purpose, or the ability to withstand suffering. Life can refer to individual life, human life, or existence life. Okay. Deception by grammar. Foley explains the grammatical structure of the question, what is the meaning of life, can mislead us into searching for a singular external thing called meaning. He draws parallels to philosophical issues discussed by thinkers like Parmenides and Wittgenstein, who also noted how linguistic frameworks can obscure deeper realities. Foley suggests an alternative approach inspired by Hugh Price's functional analysis of language. Instead of asking, what is truth? Price asks, what does truth do? Applying this to meaning, Foley proposes asking what we are doing when we call something meaningful. He offers a sketch function suggesting that calling something meaningful often marks it as worth expending effort over or otherwise just worth accepting a cost over. So we don't even go that far. We actually cheat, right? We're going to cheat in part 3 and we're going to say, hey, what like we all have this idea of a meaningful life, right? And all of our ideas about it differ in some way. So really what each of us wants is to be able to believe that we have a meaningful life. So you are the judge here. Now, you know, the reason why you're probably here is because you don't believe that, you know, you have the meaningful life yet, or you're still trying to look for it. So these are tools that allow you to get to the point where you believe that you have the meaningful life, regardless of what that means. And that's our cheat. And it doesn't require us to start figuring out like what the semantics of a meaningful life are. It doesn't require us to come up with some weird rule set or anything. We just have the goal. It's a clear heuristic, and we will offer all the tools that are going to be necessary in order to get to that point. Wittgenstein, difference between meaning and purpose. Right, like, you know, these are really ambiguous topics. Meaning, purpose, you feel as though you are... Yeah, what else? Like, I say emotionally rewarding, because I kind of try to, you know, inject my own understanding of what I think it might mean for each of us. Like, we're kind of looking for a physiological, but really like a mental state. It's like a manifestation of a mental state where we feel like we're content with what we've done or what we're doing.
Like that this is the stuff that we're going to explore a little more clearly. I don't think we're going to just cheat like I just said we would. I think we'll cheat, and then we'll also kind of explain what we think might be like an underlying goal that we're looking for, which would be something like emotional well-being, but not necessarily some type of hedonism. It's like it's going to be some sort of, it's a very specific emotional feeling of feeling content or something like that, or feeling challenged. I'm not sure. We'll have to look into that. That's kind of going to be one of the main questions of part 3, and perhaps the goal of part 3 is going to be to look into these possible outcomes and say like, hey, this is kind of going to be like a menu, just like in part 2, like which of these outcomes do you really want for yourself, and this is how you can get there. Like that's what we'll probably talk about. Okay, taking a girl out on Valentine's Day and explaining the convergence between Wittgenstein's philosophy and the Stanford public document. If someone does that, please let me know, because that would be pretty funny. That would make my day. I don't know if it's going to make her day, but it'll make my day. Purpose denotes function, meaning denotes significance. Right, but people want to believe that their life is purposeful, which would be something akin to significance as well. So I don't know. I think even though we can try to come up with these like hard definitions that differentiate them, we're always going to have this issue of them, these words just being incredibly ambiguous. Because even these definitions that we come up with, like what is significance or what is function, is going to differ between each person who's inferring it still. A shoe has purpose but has little to no meaning. Right, so we want meaningful purpose. That's what we're looking for. So we've gotten into this, we want a life that is purposeful meaningfully, has meaningful purpose. So at the end of the day, we're just asking the same question. Are you interested in this? What is this?
This episode.
Oh, this was the same thing we just went over, right? From the book, but we only read the oh, we're getting the full this. I think we only read the description or like the abstract of the book. All right, Evan Thompson. Where's Evan Thompson? There he is. Oh man, he looks older than he did in that video previously. But I guess that makes sense. That was a while ago. Interview based on the book I'm reading. Excellent book. A shoe has purpose but little to no meaning. Okay, the shoe lobby will be speaking to you soon. Uh-oh, Big Shoe is going at it. Going after you. All right, so when people ask for life's meaning, they want to know if life is important enough to live through. Yikes. Okay, did I miss... Does that justification make sense for you? Did I miss a justification here? I suppose my justification for specifically asking about cubism is because you discuss how meaning is constituted through embodied interaction with the environment, and I believe cubism is a specific instantiation of that idea in physics. Right, but we make a specific point that when we talk about meaning, we are specifically looking at how like what manifests in our experience. Like we're specifically talking about phenomenology. We're talking about what appears in consciousness. I think we point out specifically that we cannot connect that realm of experience to quantum physics or any other type of physics, except for what physics might actually be involved in, like the manifestation of these mental states. And it doesn't seem as though quantum physics has a significant, like, relevant effect on our conscious experience. Like, of course, quantum physics is still affecting our body and brain. Like, we're still existing in a quantum, or at least in a physical world that can be interpreted through quantum mechanics. But that doesn't mean that it has some, like,
some extra thing to give us in terms of how we experience the world or the meaning that we experience. You know, we aren't physicalists here, even though it might sound like we are. Okay. So when people ask for life's meaning, they want to know if your life is important enough to live through. I feel like people also are looking like for something just to enjoy, right? It's not like they'll live through it, but they're looking for a more enjoyable life. I think that's what a lot of people do. So yeah, I would just say in either of these cases, we shouldn't try to assume what all people are looking for when they ask for a meaningful life. Like that's gonna be the point. Everyone's gonna be different on this in this regard. The cultures that remember, we have to deal with these biases that I've been talking about, and we've got these huge availability biases towards our own cultures. But we have to keep in mind that people all over the globe are thinking about a meaningful life in a different way. And we want to only leverage the fact that people can understand a concept that is denoted with the term meaningful life. And we don't know what they mean by that, or what they think by that, or what they infer from that. But at least this is just a single thing that we all share. Like we can all not understand, but we can all at least recognize this word as having some meaning for ourselves. So we could ask ourselves this, you know, what needs to happen for this to appear in our own life. And that's kind of what we're going to talk people through in part 3. You read the highlights from a chapter on perception. Oh, okay. Right. You added those highlights to the Reddit. Okay. My apologies. Unlike when people ask for the purpose of life, they seem to not know it's meant to be lived. Yeah, even something like that, where it's like the purpose of life is for it to be lived. I think is like, I mean, I agree with that like sentiment, but it's still carrying too much cultural weight here. Like we can't assume that people are gonna understand even what that means, or have a similar inclination towards that type of answer. They might be looking for something more grand or religious, you know? So we need to keep that in mind. It's an exercise in empathy here. We need 2 physicists in the room with us right now, the one in the box, the one outside it, to help us decide. He who can find a why can bear almost any how. Damn, who said that? Was that a Nietzsche quote? I'm just a messenger. Give me donations and I shall pass shoe into law. People must wear shoes. That's Nietzsche. Nice. Yet again. Very nice. All right, Evan Thompson, a professor of philosophy, discussed his book, Waking, Dreaming, Being, which explores the self from the perspective of contemporary contemplative traditions. And let me just see, contemplative traditions. Diverse ancient and modern practices, including meditation, prayer, yoga, and mindfulness. Cool. I guess that makes sense. Contemplate, contemplative, mindfulness. Neuroscience and philosophy of mind. The key points from the discussion include, and this 115, is this, yeah, this is capturing it all. Critique of Buddhist exceptionalism. Dr. Thompson clarifies his previous work, Why I Am Not a Buddhist, explaining that his critique is aimed at the idea of Buddhism being uniquely scientific. He emphasizes that he does not intend to undermine anyone's religious affiliation. All right, personal practice. He shares his extensive daily practice of Tai Chi and Chinese energy arts, and discusses his understanding of Qi not as a special scientific field, but as a concept deeply rooted in the descriptive value of the practice itself. Awesome. Deeply rooted in the descriptive value of the practice itself. Descriptive value. Is it that the practice is describing things to him? Like it's revelatory. It reveals. It manifests descriptions that are helpful. The self as an enacted process. The core concept of waking, dreaming being is that the self is an ongoing, constructed process rather than a fixed entity. This is a huge thesis for part 1 of the document, and it's going to be a thesis for part 2 of the document, and it's going to be a thesis for part 3 of the document. Huge thesis that what we believe to be our like identity can be something that we can play with, and that it is not static. Dr. Thompson explains how awareness and self-awareness shift across different states of consciousness, including waking, dreaming, lucid dreaming, and out-of-body experiences. Right. Yeah, so when he says this, he's actually referring to a more broad topic, which we do kind of cover, but when we talk about self in the document, we're kind of highlighting the interpretive aspect rather than simply like the using self as a way to describe consciousness at large, which is something like Heidegger does. Like Heidegger talks about the self as this entire process of being disclosing itself. The interviewer looks corny, maybe, but he's very knowledgeable and a good interview. That's great. That's awesome. Stan, it's Valentine's Day. What are you going to be doing in the document about friendship and relationships? Well, in part 2, we only need to talk about relationships in the context of what can help you pursue your goals. So this is going to be like finding communities that are going to set like a standard or some sort of pressure that would help you out. This is going to talk about how it's important to have relationships for support or relationships for challenge, mentorship. It's going to be important to talk about, I don't know, any of these social topics that like benefit you towards your goal regardless of what it is. Now in part 3, obviously we have to start talking about the necessity of, or let's not say necessity. We could talk about the necessity in the case of like not having any social relationship. Like, you know, when people go into solitary confinement, they literally you know, go crazy. But we would talk about the benefits of having relationships and what types of relationships and all that. Like that would be a part 3-ism. We would definitely want to talk into, like we would go into marriage and stuff like that in part 3. Like how does that help you feel like you have a meaningful life? And I think the conclusion is going to be that like a significant relationship is probably a gold mine for meaning, and children are gold mine for meaning. If we're talking like, you know, the meaning of emotional well-being and feeling like you have a purpose or whatever path we go down. Are you going to matchmake us, Stan? Shipping session. Now you have to matchmake yourselves. That's the whole thing. It's the whole point. I don't think we're going to talk. I don't think we're going to do a how to find a, like we can't let this go into bro science. This can't be a how to find a significant other. This can say like, hey, if you want to know how to find a significant other, you know, just like every other goal that you might have, you have to figure out how to find a significant other. And what would that look like? Does it look like looking it up online? Does it look like reading some books? Like that's on you. We don't really need to have that type of topic in part 3. King, we need a play as advice. Drop the knowledge. There's no play as advice here. You got to talk about online friendships. We could talk about, we definitely should talk about online friendships and that whole scene today. We should talk about all kinds of friendships. We should talk about parasocial relationships. We should talk about anonymous relationships. We should talk about all this stuff. But we don't need to go into the play as advice, unfortunately. Offsprings of my own emotionally abuse rather than watching others. Oh, I see. Offsprings of my own to emotionally abuse rather than watching others. Well, hopefully we're not emotionally abusing our offsprings. I did always say that after we're done this document, we could do a whole document on parenting, but that, you know, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a kid by that time, so maybe that won't look, you know, that I'll have ethos problems with that one. Okay, you mentioned marriage. Yeah, I think it would be less of like marriage in terms of like a religious marriage or a governmental marriage. It would be more like long-term relationships, long-term close relationships, or yeah. I guess I don't know if we have to talk about monogamy or anything like this. Maybe we do talk about monogamy if and only if we see that there's like, if it really matters, like if you're polyamorous or not. Like maybe there's stats on whether or not polyamorous people are more or less happy, and that would be important to know. I'm married to my keyboard and mouse. Oh no. Just because it's a long-term relationship, do you ever get a new mouse or a new keyboard? Okay, lucid dreaming. Dr. Thompson recounts his personal experiences with lucid dreaming, including a powerful dream in India that inspired the book. Wow. He also touches on the Tibetan Buddhist practice of dream yoga. Very cool. Let's watch this section.
And then in a lucid dream, of course, all that, a very intense lucid dream in particular, all that shifts because you now have an awareness of yourself that includes yourself as dreamer, and maybe even with recollections of previous lucid dreams or a full awareness that you're there lying in the bed. And you have a sense of yourself in the dream, immersed, which could be, again, from a first person or a third person, or I would say third person perspective. So you have this very kind of complexified range of possibilities for self-experience, how you experience the self in these different states, and they're all sort of innerly linked. You know, imagination, memory, dreaming, lucid dreaming, of course, out-of-body experiences in the waking state, where you have an experience, or in a sleep state or in the waking state, they can happen in different contexts, where you experience yourself from the outside, and it doesn't feel at all like a dream. It feels real and vivid, but you feel, you know, here I am up at the ceiling, and then there I am down below in the bed. You have two different, you know, images of yourself with a sense of identity that's partially below and partially above.
Wow.
And
can you Babadook yourself? Can you like see yourself on the ceiling as you're seeing yourself on the bed? Because that would be a little crazy. I don't know how I'd manage that one. Online friendships dipping as soon as you ask for $2,000. I thought we was cool. You mentioned marriage. Nietzsche quotes on marriage are quite funny. Are they toxic? I feel like they could be toxic. Only when they die, then I remarry. I see. Yeah, that's actually my relationship with a lot of my tech products, tech belongings. It's like the day that it breaks is actually a great day because that's the day I get to buy a new one. So it makes me not get upset if something breaks. But the trade-off is I can't just be buying stuff all the time. I need to wait until there's a need. I'll pay you back soon, Onion. Toxic, kind of. It depends. Uh-oh. Wasn't he like incredibly lonely? No Need King, spend it how you like. That was a special gift.
That then actually presents differently from how it presents in memory, where you know that in memory, when you have that outside view, that you're remembering, but in a full-blown out-of-body experience, it doesn't feel like a memory. It feels like, you know, it's happening here and now. So those are some of the like range of possibilities, and what I do in the book is I try to, you know, carefully describe them phenomenologically, using examples from my own experience of all these different kinds of experiences, and then relate them to things we know about these experiences in cognitive science and the study of the mind, scientific study of the mind.
Lucid dreaming, particularly, I think, fascinating area. You said that that's been quite a key interest for you. I wonder if you might say a bit about that, your own lucid dreaming, I suppose, experience or practice. Is it something you still engage with actively?
I do intermittently. When I was writing the book, I really engaged with it a lot. In the sense of really writing down my dreams, keeping track of them, getting up in the middle of the night, reading about dreaming, going back to sleep, doing all the kinds of things that increase the likelihood of having a lucid dream. Taking naps, because that part of the sleep cycle opens up different sleep states as more likely, including sleep paralysis. I experimented a lot with sleep paralysis in napping in the writing of the book.
Scary stuff.
I'm not doing that so much now, just because it's very demanding to really throw yourself into it, and I don't quite have the same amount of time for it in my current life. But I spontaneously lucid dream reasonably frequently, I would say. It's hard to say exactly how frequently. It kind of comes and goes, but it's kind of always there for me as an experiential possibility, even if I'm...
Has anyone here had experience with a sleep paralysis monster? Because that's what really terrifies me. All right, marriage as a long conversation. When marrying, you should ask yourself this question: do you believe you're going to enjoy talking with this woman into your old age? Everything else in marriage is transitory. What does transitory mean? But most of the time that you're together will be devoted to conversation. I believe in that, or I agree with that quote so much. Not permanent. Yeah, I agree with that quote so much. That's like the number one thing. You need to have that spark. And yeah, I think for me, I would want like a little bit of a challenge, but also some humor involved. Mad wisdom. I don't have time to dream either. Too busy. Oh no. I had sleep paralysis before. It's scary. I can only imagine. Yeah, you know what? I guess the only thing recently that I've experienced was like a year ago. I think it was like a bruise on my foot, and it made it very difficult for me to fall asleep. And I didn't have any Advil with me. I had no ibuprofen, so I was unable to fall asleep. I was staying up all night basically in a hotel room, and by the time it was like near morning, I definitely hallucinated someone walking into my hotel room, and that really freaked me out. It was kind of dreamlike, but it also like, I guess it was a little more dreamlike because the light was on brighter than it was when I woke up, but it was pretty surreal. It felt more real than a dream, and that freaked me out. So now I bring ibuprofen whenever I go to a hotel room. Tried to call for help, but all that came out was a whimper. Couldn't move my limbs. Took a long while before I could move, and I ran to the sofa and just stared at the TV. Damn. Yeah, no, I feel that. That could be incredibly terrifying. Maybe it was the Virgin Mary. Maybe. And I told the story here where I woke up in the shower one time, and I didn't remember getting there, and then I walked. I did my shower. I was just thinking that I was dumb and I forgot, or tired and I forgot. And then when I like opened the door to my room and the light was off, like it hit me, and I kind of froze for a second, and it freaked me out. And I checked the clock, and it was midnight, and I was so scared that I could just do that without knowing it. I could just walk to the shower and turn it on and start showering. That was probably just like getting chronic sleep deprivation from waking up early for school, though. That was pretty messed up. Wish I could sleepwalk my job and wake up after clocking out. That would be so cool. But then we start getting into some severance philosophy talks, which are interesting, but I think we'd have pretty simple takes on that. All right, we did lucid dreaming. The societal aspect of self and practice. He highlights the crucial role of social interaction in the construction of the self, emphasizing that even solitary practices like being a hermit are social categories. He advocates for creating a social space for experiential investigation through meditation. Creating a social space for experiential investigation through meditation. Huh. The social interaction. But he's saying that really be mindful of the social identity you're taking up in your practice, even if you're being a hermit. That's pretty interesting. Let's watch this one.
You're returning there once again, it seems, to the social.
Yeah.
And you've said the social is crucial in the arising of the sense of the self. You discussed that with that joint attention. And now you're returning to it again as one of the key markers of the usefulness, I suppose, or of a deeper understanding of the self. When we think of the social, what implications does that have for the practitioner and for the practice of in particular, practices designed to investigate the self? Because, of course, often these practices are, like you said, it's solitary. It's some sort of private, internal insight is then one goes up to the mountain and then comes back down from the mountain again. Right. But if the social is key at the beginning, and you're saying the social seems key at the end, if we consider an unfolding insight into the self and its consequences to be the end, so to speak, and a sort of open-ended end, what about the middle?
Yeah, right.
What can the social tell us about the way we ought to investigate the self, contrasted with that solitary archetype of the practitioner?
Yeah. Well, so one thing I would say is that the solitary archetype is actually a social archetype, right? Because if you're a hermit up in the mountain, hermit is a social category, right? It means you've withdrawn from others. Of course, you've been raised with others. Now you're withdrawing maybe for just a period of time, maybe not your whole life, maybe your whole life. Some societies recognize the role of the hermit as a social category. They support it, so they bring you offerings of food, or they sustain you because they see your.
I think the point, regardless of whether we're talking about like a concrete social category like hermit, is that anything that we interpret or anything we think about is already through a social lens, regardless of whether we think it is or not. And that was kind of a Heidegger insight, but I think it's just a general insight, just the social aspect of this. We talk about social drives in our biases here, innate sociality. Right. And then we get into concrete social heuristics at some point. Social categorization. I don't know. We're going to get into a lot more stuff than I think I have written down here, but the social is certainly welcome in any discussion of these topics.
Or solitary project as worthwhile. So all of that is social already. If we're thinking of the project or one project as investigating the mind, let's say, understanding ourselves through investigating the mind, then I do think that science and our culture in general needs to create a space for the kind of experiential investigation, phenomenological investigation, in which meditation can be very useful. And so
okay, then we've got middle way view of the self. Proposes a middle way, understanding the self, situated between the extreme view of a fixed real self and the nihilistic idea of no self, right? He posits that the self is a functionally important process, a construction of the brain, body, and environment working together. Right. Yep. I don't think it's, once you get to the point where there's no self and you really believe it, or you really feel it, I should say, then you're in that would it be precise to say you're in that equanimity? You're in that mode of like literally just not experiencing concrete things. And once you start thinking about what you just experienced, now you're back at the self. And so we kind of have to operate with some sense of self in order to do anything, and that's kind of what we're looking for within this whole treatise. He posits that the self is functionally an important process, right? Is working on 2 new books, The Blind Spot, Experience Science, and The Search for, this was 2 years ago though, and The Search for Reality, co-written with 2 physicists. which questions the scientific view of reality as independent of human experience. All right. And Dying, Our Ultimate Transformation, an expansion of his work on dying and death and waking dreaming being, integrating contemplative practices with neuroscience. Very cool. All right. Yeah, we could check out The Guru Viking. It's a cool name. We should peep the channel. I was once sleeping on a plane and dreamed that there was a Platonist in front of me. Decked the guy straight, no regrets. I don't even care about Plato. Did it for the game. Reflex. Hell yeah. Defending the anti-Platonists in your sleep. Hell yeah. All right, AI with exoskeleton could do it. Take over my day job while I sleep soundly and I wake up refreshed to party all night. Right. It depends what we mean by party all night here, because usually partying all night implies we're like, I don't know, drinking or taking some type of substance which is going to affect our sleep. So we gotta you know, get the AI to do the job, and then we gotta get a good night's sleep by perhaps not partying all night. All right, Platonists ruining everything, and that's so many things for a Platonist. True. Very nicely done. Even Buddhists would say, I think the self is more like a constellation than a void. Emptiness often taken for voidness, but it's more subtle. I see. Yeah, I like talking about it as a constellation. I like getting the body and the brain in there, and getting obviously affordances in there. That's a huge deal. Okay. I wouldn't know where to go from here though. This is where like a unsolicited advice really excels, having each episode of the podcast have a title that tells you what it's going to be talking about, and not just being the explanatory descriptive name. So yeah, I'm not sure where to go here. What is going on? We got more snow meditation. All right, we went through this one, right? No, we didn't go through this. By letting go of the object focus inquiry, Folly believes we can explore new avenues, such as considering psychological and physiological factors that contribute to a sense of meaning. Hell yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Or recognizing that different senses of meaning can be intention, like fitting into a grander purpose versus self-determination. This is a cool idea. Ultimately, he argues that understanding the polyvalence and linguistic framing of meaning can dissolve seemingly interactable philosophical debates and lead to more practical solutions for the crises of meaning. All right, this was, I think this has enough substance that we should at some point watch this. Let's just say here the different ways we can think about a meaningful life. Boom. We got it. What's it? Is it Joe Folly? Or did I just butcher the name here? Joe Folly. Nice. Okay. Still remember when Stan wore the suit. Oh, I did wear a suit. It was New Year's Day, right? New Year's Eve. JP Fashion Sense Dapper Hollywood. Well, the suit wasn't purple, so I'm already missing the mark here. What is it? It was Who Dare says he believes in God? Did I get it right? Who dares say he believes in God? Oh, I got it. Look at this. Look at this. Incredible. Man, he's popping off with it, like the gray in the beard here and the suit, and we got a lobster tie going on. Like this is a top tier Jordan Peterson fit as far as I'm concerned. I like how Joe never talks about his credentials. Same with Alex. Hell yeah. I think that's a good model to follow here. I don't think anyone needs to know credentials. That being said, they sometimes bring up their school and I get intimidated because they probably put in the work in college. These guys are some smart cookies. All right, what else do we have? I don't know what this is from, but maybe this is something that'll influence us. Oh, wait, we already watched this. Okay. I didn't. Yeah. Classic. This brings me back. What else do we have here? Same with Alex. Boris Krieger. Right, listing out all those things, author and such and so forth, and AI, AI itself, like he's a literal AI. What else? You know what? We put this in our watch later like 2 years ago. Let's see if we can just do the ask for summarizing the video and help us out in that way. Yeah, now how do I get it to be the full screen like we just had it? That I'm not sure about. Oh, and I lost. Okay. This video features a discussion between, is this pronounced Ian? Lane, McGillichrist, John Verveek, and Daniel Schmottenberger on the psychological drivers of the meta-crisis, an ecosystem of global crises with underlying dynamics generating catastrophic risks. This seems a little out of scope. The conversation, unscripted and exploratory, aims to outline the cognitive and spiritual components contributing to this crisis. Or is this more like a meaning crisis? Is this kind of on the same topic? I watched this entire video once. I have regrets. Was this not as helpful as... The internet is a crazy place. Where else can a high school dropout hairdresser, now a stay-at-home mom of 5, listen to intellectual conversation like this? The best of humanity, while at the same time it's ruining us. Social media poisoning our kids, dividing us. Thank you for sharing this. God help us all. That's very sweet. All right, the meta crisis of the meta crisis and human uniqueness. The speakers define the meta crisis as the interconnected global crises. They highlight that these risks, including economic, game theoretic, and technological drivers, are uniquely human-made, distinguishing humanity from other species that do not threaten planetary systems. That raises the question of whether this destructive capacity is innate or can be conditioned differently. I don't know. All right, Master and Emissary framework. McGillichrist introduces his Master and Emissary fable to explain the root of the current crisis. The Master, representing holistic, broad understanding, entrusts the Emissary, representing focused administrative function, with managing the community. The Emissary, due to hubris, eventually takes over, leading to imbalance and all right, I'm going to skip past that whole deal.
Vervaeke's meaning crisis. John Vervaeke discusses the contemporary meaning crisis, citing a 2019 UK survey where 80% of people reported their lives as meaningless. He distinguishes anxiety from fear, associating anxiety with a nebulous sense of disconnection and low-grade horror. Vervaeke outlines 4 factors of meaning in life: purpose, coherence, significance, and participation. Is this not just the self-determination theory here? We've got purpose, coherence, and participation maybe is covered. I'm not sure. Oh, self-transcend. Maybe that was one of them. He argues that the overwhelming amount of irrelevant information in the modern world hinders our ability to focus on what is truly relevant, leading to the modern crisis of meaning. Distinction from a meaningful universe. The conversation delves into the distinction between extrinsic and intrinsic purpose, which we had to talk about. They suggest that a solely extrinsic view of purpose, is often found in modern scientific philosophy, can lead to nihilism. McGillichrist proposes that the left hemisphere's dominance in epistemology, focused on acquisition and pleasure, struggles to grasp intrinsic purpose or meaning, which are better understood by the right hemisphere's capacity for the sacred and higher values. Okay. The speakers explore the challenge of binding power with wisdom. They discuss how a power-seeking ethos can undermine wisdom and how societies must find a way to close the evolutionary niche on purely self-serving power. Vervaeke suggests that rediscovering love for being and connection, as exemplified by historical movements like early Christianity, can break game theoretic cycles driven by scarcity mentality and left hemispheric dominance. Okay. And then we got stewarding exponential power and the problem of scale. They confront the question of whether humanity can develop the wisdom to steward its rapidly accelerating technological power, especially given past failures and current planetary boundaries. McGillichrist introduces the Kabbalistic concept of the shattering of the vessels and tikkun olam, repair of the world, suggesting humanity's unique role in repairing what has been broken, much like the Japanese art of kintsugi. They also discuss the problem of scale, noting that larger systems often lose touch with the nuances and values present at smaller, more human scales. Then we got reimagining education and cultivating wisdom. Oh, there's a bunch of things here. All right, what do we got going on here? Oh, it could probably be summed up in about 30 seconds. Hell yeah. 99% of YouTube, to be honest. Metacrisis equals types of big crises are connected. If you fix one, you might make another one worse. So we should look at all at once. I see. That is a cool concept, though. Can we make the left side window bigger than the right side? Kind of wasting half the screen most of the time. That is true. That is true. I do fall into that issue. Honestly, like we should have like the big stuff on the other side. And then it just depends what we're working on. Maybe we would switch these around. But I do appreciate that feedback because I kind of fail in that regard all the time. Let's get a 125 going here. Oh, look at that. Front and center. Okay, then we've got could always alt tab. This is to switch to what, like one to the other? So we would have to have them like on top of each other in that case, which is not ideal, just because then what are we doing with this part of the screen? All right, we've got reimagining education and culture and cultivating wisdom. The conversation shifts to how education can be reimagined to cultivate wisdom rather than just impart information. They advocate for an education that fosters relational understanding, deeper engagement with traditional knowledge systems like Neoplatonism,
and a reintegration of the sacred. A practical suggestion is to reduce bureaucratic overhead in institutions to free up resources and focus on truly impactful relational learning. Okay. Closing thoughts and agency. In closing the speaker's urge against despair, they emphasize that each individual has a role in fostering positive change by living intentionally and furthering large causes. They conclude with a strong affirmation of the inherent beauty, richness, and purpose of existence, encouraging listeners to embrace the love of wisdom and being as real possibilities for transformation. Cool. That's kind of what we're doing. All right. I'll give it a thumb. What is the video even about? It was about the meta crisis, and they were talking about different ways of thinking about it, and then they arrived at ways to combat it, and yeah. Nothing too crazy. Interesting. Okay, we could take that off of our list. All right. We never got to this video. The roots of attention. And now that we have this ability to summarize, we might as well use it. All right. Sam Harris and Amishi Jad discuss attention in the brain, including how attention is studied, the ineffectiveness of brain training games, the relationship between attention and awareness, and mindfulness as an intrinsic mental capacity. Key points from the conversation include Jad's focus. As a cognitive neuroscientist, her work centers on understanding the brain's attention system, its vulnerabilities, and how mental training, particularly mindfulness, can strengthen it. This research is especially critical for professions where attentional lapses can have severe consequences, but for our sake, it's important for everyone. Tools for studying attention. Jad's lab uses functional MRI and EEG along with behavioral measures from cognitive tasks and self-report metrics. Journey into mindfulness. She shares her personal and professional path to mindfulness driven by the realization that despite studying attention scientifically, she struggles with it in her own life. Particularly as a new mother, her turning point became during a lecture by Richie Davidson, who suggested meditation as a way to shift brain states from negative to positive. We got mindfulness and attention, began that, preceding the widespread impact of smartphones. She defines attention as the brain's ability to select and prioritize information, acting like a flashlight in a dark room. She differentiates this from awareness, which is more like a floodlight encompassing the full spectrum of what's happening in the present moment. Okay. So it's a subset of awareness in this metaphor. Selective focus, prioritizing specific information. We got a learning system, prioritizing the present moment, like a floodlight. Then we've got goal-related selection, executive function, aligning actions with goals, like a juggler. Jad describes mindfulness as an intrinsic mental mode characterized by purposeful attention to present moment experience with non-elaboration and non-reactivity. She uses an MP3 player metaphor, keeping the mind on play to experience the moment-to-moment unfolding of life rather than rewinding or fast-forwarding. All right, neural correlates of attention and mindfulness. She discusses the emerging understanding of brain networks involved in attention and mindfulness. She explains that rather than modular brain regions, entire networks coordinate to produce mental processes, right? When practicing mindfulness, specific networks are active, and prolonged practice can lead to sustained changes in their functioning and even structural changes in the brain. All right, we've been new, but cool to see nevertheless. right. Where do we go from here? We must do it. We must get one in. The dream that ends too soon. Back on the dream topic. All right, what do we have going on here? Cure for insomnia. Ian, I find interesting because he pokes into brains a lot, but I'm very sus about Spottenberger. For one, he sells brain pills or something like that made out of mushroom stuff or something. Ooh, I think that's fine. I think the mushroom stuff is well substantiated. I haven't tried it, but I think that's fine. As long as it, as long as it's grounded in something. And they chose Neoplatonism. Interesting. Me and the boys discussing random philosophical topics at the campsite. Are we wrapping up? That's a good question. I've got nothing that comes to mind on what we can go into. So if anyone wants to suggest something, we can do that, or we can end. It doesn't matter. Just beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful.
This is...
Once again, he's eating the snow. Oh, hell yeah. Not trusting a salesman. True, true.
In this episode.
Okay, here we go. Meditation virtuoso. Let's get a summary. Why are we getting the full view here in his videos versus these other videos? That's interesting. In this interview, Delson Armstrong, a spiritual teacher and student of Bhante Villaramsi, discusses his extensive meditation background and unique experiences. David Johnson, a senior student of Bhante Villaramsi, praises Delcy's mastery of every practice he's been given, highlighting his ability to recall past lives and attain all levels of Buddhist awakening. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, this is a guy. What the heck? Oh, a student of an actual guy. Okay. I thought this was a facet of like some branch. He's a student of this guy. He was a senior student of this guy. Praises Delson's mastery of the practices. I see. Okay. Delson recounts his early life, yogic and Buddhist samadhi. Contrasts yogic and Buddhist samadhi and shares his study. Okay, this needs to be a little more extensive. I feel like Buddhist practices and attainment. He explores his studies of Dzogchen and Mahamudra with Lama Lena, comparing. Okay, I don't think we can decipher this. Delson describes achieving all challenges set. The feats and scientific study. Delson reveals his ability to see past lives, including a previous life. I'm going to be a little skeptical of seeing past lives. He also discusses entering states of sustained animation called whatever that is for up to 6 days, and his participation in a study at the University of Amsterdam that examined his brain, body, and the state. The study yielded surprising results, including a precise adherence to his stated intention for entering and exiting the state, and brainwave patterns that indicated a deeper state than deep sleep, yet with normal heart and respiratory rates, leading to conflicts with traditional accounts. That's cool. For the lay person, is there anything practical that I can gather from this? I have a question. To be honest, I don't believe this is relevant for the document. However, I would like your perspective on it. Okay. Depends what the question is, but what's your perspective on Langen's CTMU? What is Langen's CTMU? Cognitive theoretic model of the universe. All right, from this video, you can gather practical insights primarily from Delson's discussion of the tranquil wisdom insight meditation practice and his general approach to meditation. Here are some practical takeaways. Mindfulness over concentration. Delson emphasizes that practice focuses less on intense concentration and more on collectedness and understanding mindfulness. This means gently bringing your mind back to your object of meditation when it wanders, rather than forcing it to stay focused. I see. This approach can make meditation feel more accessible and less like a struggle. So is that why he suggests it, or?
Is that it's less concentrated and more collected.
Oh, we've seen this guy before.
I think there has to be a distinction made between what we say when we say concentration and what we say when we say collectedness. And what we're really talking about here is when we talk about concentration, the idea is that the mind becomes super focused. In the suttas, it's talked about as mind-crushing mind. And that sounds very, very painful. And indeed, it can become painful, where, for example, Bhante Vimalaramsi, when he did his practice in Samadhi practice, as it's understood in the Mahasi tradition and so on, it was super concentrated, and he experienced headaches and things like that. And so if you become super concentrated, what is happening is you are suppressing or repressing all of those desires instead of understanding and acknowledging them and letting them go in the proper way. What I mean by that is when you have collectedness, what you're doing is you have an object of meditation like loving kindness or compassion or even the breath, for example. But the mind kind of anchors itself around that object. It doesn't become the object. It doesn't focus itself on the object. It's just sort of circulating around the object. And in doing so, there's an open awareness. This open awareness is very similar to Rigpa in Dzogchen and Mahamudra. So it's a type of awareness where the mind is very open, very collected, and just seeing things as they really are when they arise and pass away. So in Pali, this is known as Yatta Buddha Jnana Dasanam, Yatta Buddha Jnana Dasanam, which is the knowledge and vision of reality as it is, or as of things as they really are. And that's a deep level of equanimity that happens when you collect your mind around this object. Since the mind is open and since the attention is open, there is space not only for hindrances to arise, but also insights into how this mind works. When the hindrances arise, what happens is you use the process of right effort within Buddhism. And in the twin practice, it's known as the 6 R's. And really, the 6 R's are nothing but a wonderful way of doing right effort, which...
All right, while not explicitly detailed as the 6 R's in the video, I think he literally just detailed it. Delson describes a similar process. The method provides a structural way to handle distractions in meditation. Recognize, then release. Let go of the distraction. Then relax. Then re-smile. Cultivate a gentle, uplifted feeling. Then return. Gently bring your attention back to your meditation object. Then repeat. Continue this cycle as needed. So yeah, I really like this idea of a mix between concentration and open monitoring, where you do have like an object in mind, but you're not going to force your attention on that object, and rather you're going to just make, like, in my mind, the way that I've always imagined this with the breath is like you just make sure it's in the vicinity, like it's got to still be there. You can't let it go away. When you get carried away by thoughts, then there's no breath anymore, and it's gone. It's left the party. But what I try to do, or what I've tried to do, is kind of just exist in the same room as it, let's just say. And as long as I know it's there, then I can, free up space to open monitor. Okay, the fake IQ guy, who he faked his IQ, or he doesn't have a real IQ? He's not a person? Or is he... does he claim to be like an IQ scientist and instead hasn't done something, or seems some drama around him, but just a deep
And dude, long cessation in a lab is insane. True, yep. I mean, what was that, 6 days? Something crazy? I've done a good amount of 6 Rs. It's a good technique. Do I not have one? What was that a question on? Do I not have what? We got patience and natural progression. Highlights that certain mental shifts, like a lessening of attachment to sensuality, happen naturally as a result of consistent practice. Yeah, this is another thing that I've just kind of tried to follow, is to not expect any changes, but to just know that changes will come, because I just trust the science here. So it's kind of just, I'm along for the ride, and as long as I keep doing it, these changes are going to be there. I might not even notice these changes ever, but they're going to be there. They're going to affect my life in ways that might be subtle, but ways that we know to be good. This suggests that patience and consistent practice are key rather than trying to force outcomes. All right, we got no suppression of thoughts. He notes that the mind will let go on its own without needing to suppress thoughts or desires. This is a crucial point for beginners, as fighting with thoughts often creates more mental agitation. Instead, you're learning to observe them without getting caught up. And then demystifying spiritual states. Delson believes in demystifying spiritual states through scientific understanding. For a layperson, this can be encouraging, as it frames these experiences as natural phenomena of the mind and body that can be explored and understood rather than mythical or unattainable. In essence, the video offers practical guidance on approaching meditation with a gentle, observant attitude, focusing on developing a relaxed and open awareness rather than rigid concentration. This aligns with general mindfulness practices that encourage focusing on the present moment, observing thoughts without judgment, and gently returning attention to an anchor like the breath. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Okay. Langan. Complex self-published metaphysical framework that posits reality as a self-configuring, self-processing language. It argues that the universe is a self-simulating, self-referential system that creates itself, bridging the gap between mind and matter, science and theology. Okay. It is a system that uses its own structure. Yeah. We just can't go, we can't get anything here. Like, I just don't know how to do this without quantum science, and we already have looked into the different versions of quantum theories that seem to be more acceptable than others, and we want to keep that separation of the physical world from our conscious experience. And so my perspective is I just don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it with a 6-foot pole. Is that the phrase? Touch with a 10-foot pole. Maybe not 10. I would touch it with a 10-foot pole, but not a 6-foot pole. 6 is a little too close. Nice, thank you very much. I know, but I'm asking for your personal perspective on it. I indicated that it's not really. Right. No, my personal perspective, I have no idea what to do with that type of theory, and really, I guess what I know to do with it is to skip over it. I just don't like making like some sort of claim on the connection between our experience of meaning or our understanding and the universe's structure. I think that's inappropriate. I don't think that we can think about, like, this is a similar like thing with analytic idealism. Like, I don't think that we should think that there is a significant relationship between our experience and the constitution of the physical universe. I don't think that's allowed according to our understanding of the physical universe, following quantum mechanics, following classical mechanics. Like, I just don't think it's allowed. All right, I think we're at 2 hours, so I might just call it here. call it for a nice old Saturday. We will be back tomorrow for some more frolic and fun. The only thing that I've slated here is short form marketing, but perhaps if I keep working on this automatic behaviors document like I did today, then maybe we can get something fun to read through or talk about. But we also need to discuss how to go about introducing marketing, introducing/marketing shorts, and what else should we do to push this content. So yeah, I think it's going to be like in terms of content for this channel, it's going to be a slow process of slowly adding more. Well, let's you know what? I bet I could keep up a pace of just creating these types of like short clips and then uploading those. I need to start editing more of them. We only have maybe two more weeks, 2 or maybe 3 more weeks of like videos I've already edited. So I need to continue on that one. I think we're up to like December 10th. So I could keep going there. So you don't have a personal perspective on it or either, then it's not. Yeah, I like, that's my personal perspective. Like, you know, I always talk about the document having like a different perspective than me in some regards, like in terms of morals or what I think to be more true than not. But I think in this case, this is my, like, you know, I converge with the document on a lot of these beliefs. Like, these are a lot of the stuff that the document's saying are my beliefs. So yeah, I wouldn't personally want to entertain that either for the same reasons. Okay. I'm going to call it a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for chilling. Thanks for a nice Saturday. Hopefully everyone enjoyed their Valentine's Day. And then, yeah, hopefully you all enjoy the rest of it and enjoy tomorrow as well until the stream. And then I'll tell you to enjoy the rest of the day after that.